everyone, welcome back to the channel. So I've got some pretty big news to share with you today, and it's about KiwiRail and their recent settlement with Hyundai Mipo Dockyard. Now, if you're not familiar with KiwiRail, they're the company responsible for managing rail services in New Zealand, and they've been in the news a lot lately with some major projects. But this is a game changer, and I think it's worth taking a closer look at what's going on here. The story starts with this project called Project iRex, which was supposed to be a new ferry service connecting the North and South Islands of New Zealand. The idea was to replace the aging Inter-Islander ferry service, which has been around for decades and has been plagued by delays and maintenance issues. The hope was that the new ferries would be faster, more efficient, and better for the environment. But as with many big infrastructure projects, things didn't go as planned. Here's where it gets interesting. The government, after taking office in late 2023, made some tough decisions, and one of them was to cancel the contract with Hyundai Mipo Dockyard. That's the South Korean company that was supposed to build the new ferries. But here's the kicker. They've now settled with Hyundai, paying them $144 million as a final payment. Now, I know what you're thinking. $44 million is a lot of money. But the Rail Minister Winston Peters has some things to say about this, and he's been critical of the media reports that had predicted a much larger figure for the cancellation. He's emphasizing that this $144 million payment was actually fair, as it covered the costs incurred by Hyundai and their global suppliers. He's making it clear that the cancellation wasn't a reflection on Hyundai's work, but rather a necessary decision due to the rising costs and the overall financial implications of the project. I want to take a step back here and look at the bigger picture. The original budget for this project had been set at a certain amount, but as the costs of infrastructure on land started to rise, the forecast cost of the project increased significantly. The Finance Minister, Nicola Willis, has pointed out that these rising costs were a major factor in the decision to cancel the contract. It's not just about the ferries themselves, but also the supporting infrastructure that needs to be built on land to make the new ferry service work. Tanji Utikere has called the $14.4 million payment staggering and has pointed out that the total taxpayer cost for this project has now reached over $222 million. That's a lot of money, and it's definitely a point of contention. The question is, was this the best decision for the taxpayer, or was there a better way to handle the situation? I think we need to consider both sides of the argument here. The government is saying that they've taken a disciplined approach to save taxpayers billions. They've made sure that the settlement with Hyundai was fair and that the money paid wasn't just going into the pockets of the company, but rather was covering the actual costs incurred. They also mentioned that $300 million was originally provisioned to cover the potential cost of exiting the iRex commitments, and now that money is available for other government projects. That's a significant amount, and it's a point in favor of the government's decision. The opposition is pointing out that the total cost has now reached over $222 million, which is a lot more than the original budget. They're questioning whether the government made the right decision in canceling the contract with Hyundai and whether the money could have been better spent elsewhere. It's a tough call, and I think it's important to look at the long-term implications of this decision. I want to talk a bit more about the infrastructure scope that was agreed upon with Centreport, Port Marlborough, and KiwiRail. The government has been working on agreements that focus on marine infrastructure improvements in Picton and Wellington. These are key ports that will be used for the new ferry service, and the improvements are meant to make sure that the ferries can operate efficiently and safely. It's a necessary part of the project, and it's something that the government is emphasizing as part of their overall strategy. This brings up the question of cost. If the government is investing in marine infrastructure improvements, how much is that going to cost? And is that going to be another expense that the taxpayer has to bear? I think it's important to remember that infrastructure projects are often complex and expensive, and there's always a risk of costs increasing over time. That's why it's so crucial for the government to be transparent about the financial implications of these decisions. I think it's clear that the government is trying to be as disciplined as possible with its spending. They're making sure that the money paid to Hyundai is fair and that the settlement is in line with the original provisions. They're also looking to use the money that was originally set aside for the iRex project for other government initiatives. That's a positive step, and it shows that the government is trying to be responsible with its spending, and it's going to have long-term implications for the ferry service in New Zealand. The government is going to have to find a new way to replace the aging Inter-Islander ferries, and it's going to require some serious investment. The question is, can they do it without breaking the bank again? I think that's something we'll have to watch closely in the coming months and years. I think this is a complex situation with a lot of different factors at play. The government is trying to be responsible with its spending, and they're making sure that the settlement with Hyundai is fair. But the opposition is raising valid concerns about the cost and the long-term implications of the decision. As always, it's important to stay informed and to look at all sides of the story before making a judgment. I'll be keeping an eye on this story and will definitely update you on any new developments. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on this and other important news stories. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video.